the views expressed by the Brits and by the Australians was more, please America, understand that Beijing is watching to see whether we have the willpower to stay the course with Ukraine, because that will influence their thinking about whether they can safely do something on Taiwan.
Yes.
Now, you will have heard that debate played out, and I'd just be interested in your views on it.
Well, I can't speak for the Trump people, but I know some of them, and I read what they've said. I've talked to some of them, and I think their position is the following, if I could extrapolate, or maybe it's impressionistic. They feel that Russia, with 30 times the territory, 10 times the GDP, 3.5 times the population, is going to wear down Ukraine. And it's become a Verdun or the Somme. And to win, you would have to arm Ukraine, and traditional military strategy would say that they have to preempt. They have to go into Russia and bomb supply depots on the border, bases, oil installations, if they want to win. And to do that against a nuclear power like Russia and under Putin would be very dangerous for the world in general. So then they say, what is the plan? Is the plan to have a 4-year, 3-year, 5-year Somme? 25% of the population of Ukraine is left. And so is there a mechanism to deter Putin and stop the war? And that's what they're searching for. And I think what they kind of said is something along the following. The larger that NATO gets, the more vulnerable it gets, because it has exposures where people in NATO will not flock to go. So if they were in NATO, somebody having cappuccino in Florence is not going to run over to Ukraine and fight Russians. And that's what they're worried about. So what they have said is, let us arm Ukraine to the teeth. And Trump did give them offensive weapons in a way that Obama didn't dare. And Biden held that himself when he came in for a while. And let them be armed, but not put them in NATO. And then number two, there is credibility on the Donbass and Crimea in the sense that no American president, once Obama gave them up by not doing anything, has said it is the strategy or the policy of the United States and its allies to make sure in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2020, 21, 22, to get back Crimea by force of arms and Donbass to their rightful owners. No one said that. Not Obama, not Trump, not Biden. They have said that now. And so a lot of the Trump people say the following: if we could negotiate the future of the disputed Donbass and Crimea that have 70% Russian-speaking people, I have a feeling, my own feeling is they don't want to go with Russia, but who knows? And there would be some way to adjudicate that, or Putin, if he incorporated them, we would be no worse off than he did before. Then the question is, well, would you reward him? Well, he's already had them since 2014. And he could say to his people, I lost 600,000 dead, wounded, and missing because I got an institutionalization of what I stole. Okay, but they're not in NATO. And then Ukraine could say, we're going to get him back to where he was on February 24th of 2022, and we're going to be armed. And I think that's what their position, something like that, is. And I don't quite see it's not surrendering to Ukraine. It's giving them enough weapons to protect themselves. But a lot of the anger of the Ukraine war is the priorities of the people that are advocating it. And they're advocating things like, we have to sink the Black Sea Fleet. We have to go in and hit Russian supplies. And there's no consequence. They never say, well, Russia will do this or that. And they said, no, they won't. They'll never do that. We've had about 11 people, as you know, in the Russian parliament, and I wrote about it in The End of Everything, that have advocated using tactical nuclear weapons. And that's been dismissed as completely a joke. I'm not sure that it is. And, you know, there's this asymmetry here in the United States. We hear that Israel must be proportionate. It cannot act disproportionately. And yet disproportionality, as you know, John, is the only way to win a war. And yet we're told that Ukraine must be disproportionate. They just can't tit for tat. They've got to go in there. We're told that Israel must text people, they must drop leaflets, and they must avoid civilian casualties. That's a good thing. Nobody ever tells Zelensky, hey, when you go in and attack with your drones and missiles, Russian sites, make sure you text all the civilians in Crimea or the Donbass. They don't do that. Much less do they do it when they send a drone into Russia. They don't do that. And they say no one would ever say to Mr. Netanyahu, if it gets tough, you can suspend elections and declare martial law. You just have to do it. But we take that as an obvious thing with Ukraine. So the Trump people look at this and they say, why don't you just apply the same standards, unless you think that what Hamas did on October 7th is not, doesn't give them the right that what Putin did to Kiev, but maybe they do believe that, I don't know. But they're saying, why don't you just apply the same standards to both wars? And yet we have people on the left that want to go to war with Russia over Ukraine, but they also want to stop the IDF from punishing the killers, the machine that killed people on October 7th. So, and all of that gets messed up into the nomenclature of isolationist or realist or something. But I just look at the period of 2017 to 2021, and I know that Trump said some crazy things and it seemed isolationist, but when I actually look what he did, the world was so much safer with Iran. Iran was in its box, the Houthis were in its box, Hamas was in their box. Putin didn't dare go in there. North Korea was not doing what they're doing now. And when I talk to people that come to the Hoover, or if when I travel from those countries, they tell me that they don't want to be quoted, they don't want to discuss Donald Trump, but they felt much safer when he was president than Joe Biden.